Hello everyone. So for a while now, I've been wanting to do a DPS comparison between the different Reflux builds. But I haven't been able to do a fair one because I didn't have the appropriate gems and tripods for each build. Well, after a couple weeks of farming, I think I have an appropriate setup for each build, so this video is going to be comparing the most popular Reflux builds. Now keep in mind that I don't play all of these builds, so if in any of these builds there's something you disagree with, maybe something I could have done better to improve the DPS, please let me know in the comments below, and I'll test it out and get back to you. So the first build we're going to take a look at is just your standard crit instant cast build. So for the sets, I am using 4 sets Nightmare, 2 sets Salvation. I have a 21 weapon with 77 quality. We're using 1600 crit and 500 swiftness. This is roughly what you're going to get from your relic accessories. For the engravings, I'm using Grudge, Keen Blunt Weapon, Cursed Doll, Reflux, and Hitmaster. For the gems, I have damage and cooldown on Rhyme Arrow, Esoteric Reaction, Punishing Strike, Reverse Gravity, and Seraphic Hail, and I have a damage gem on Blaze. And for the card set, I'm just using the standard Lost Wind Cliff set. This puts me at about 64% crit rate, which is enough to make Keen Blunt Weapon efficient. For the skills themselves, nothing too fancy. I've set all of them to be at least level 4, as you can see here. And for the runes themselves, again, nothing too fancy, nothing too crazy here, and you can see the skill point distribution on the left here. I won't be using Squall in any of the tests in this video, just to keep things consistent. In pretty much all the endgame raids that we're going to be doing, most of them are going to need a counter, so it's best to do the DPS test with just 7. I also won't be using the Awakening during the skill because to proc the Nightmare set effect, you have to use your Awakening, so typically people will do it at the start of the fight, and it doesn't really contribute to DPS. And I'll just be doing a standard 2-minute DPS test, because if I went any longer, this video would go very long. So, I'm gonna go ahead and summon the dummy, and I'm just gonna whack it for 2 minutes and see what happens. I'll be muting myself during this portion, so you'll just get to enjoy some Sorceress ASMR, I guess, or something like that. Let's give it a go. Alright, so you can see that the critical rate is about 63%, which is slightly under the crit rate that we have, but that's perfectly fine. And our DPS is about 3.4 million, so not too bad. Alright, so the next build that I want to test out is replacing the Cursed Doll engraving with Adrenaline. I had mentioned in my build guide that this might be worthy of doing just because we don't have as high of a crit rate as the Korean players. So exact same build, the only thing that I changed was one engraving with Adrenaline, just to see if this is comparable DPS. So again, gonna mute myself and let's see how this goes. Alright, so here we see about an 81% crit rate. So for us, 64 plus 15 is about 79, so slightly higher. And we got DPS of about 3.5 million. So comparable, if not better, to the Cursed Doll variant. And is the build I would recommend to most players right now, because for one, it's very easy to maintain Adrenaline, and two, if you're progressing raids like Vicus and things like that, you won't have to deal with the downside of Cursed Doll, which helps a lot, especially when you don't run with the support like I do. Very painful. Okay, the next build I want to try is the Swiftness variant of the instant cast build, the so-called piano build, if you will. So for the stats, I'm just going to flip these. I will try differing amounts of crit to see if I can find a safe spot, but for now we're going to do max swiftness and crit. For the engravings, we can't really use Keen Blunt Weapon anymore, so in this case we are going to replace it with Cursed Doll. And the build itself is going to remain the same, just that we have swiftness now, and these are our engravings that we're using. So once again, I'm just going to shut up, and let's see how this goes. Man, I must say that playing this piano build really does take a toll on your hands. That was only 2 minutes, but I can feel the burn already. It's a 39% crit rate. Does that line up? 24 plus 15? Yeah, it does. So we get about 3.4 million DPS. So again, pretty comparable to the other builds as well. So now what I'd like to try and do is try upping the crit rates with some sacrifices to Swiftness, because as you saw during that simulation, pretty much I was never doing nothing, I was always casting a skill. So maybe having a little bit more cooldown, but with the addition of more crit, might do more damage. So in this case, let's try like, oh, I don't know, 1400 crits, or 1400 swiftness and 700 crit. Let's try that. So that puts me at about 32.05%, right? So I just took away 200 from here, and I put 200 in here. So let's give that a go and see how that does. Okay, so with this one I got 3.2 million. Again, the crit rate of 45. Does actually fall a little bit under. Actually, 46, 47 is pretty close. But it doesn't look like speccing a little bit more into crit helps much here, because you saw that I did have a little bit of downtime. And again, the biggest benefit of the max swiftness build is to constantly cast spells, right? So that might have something to do with it. Now, of course, there are a lot of people out there who have made the Swiftness build work really well. They take, things like Lightning Vortex with quick pace. They'll use Raid Captain and things like that. I don't have that kind of experience, so this is about all I'm able to show. But you can see that the Swiftness build can indeed compete with the crit builds as well. It's just very tiring on the hand. My hand's actually kind of tired there. Alright, so the next build we're going to try out is the hybrid build, which is simply instant cast, but instead of, Seraphic Hail or Frost Call, we're going to slot in Doomsday. So let's go ahead and leave the training grounds. And let me swap over to my preset for the hybrid build. And then we'll go ahead and re-enter the training grounds. And we'll set up our stats and engravings. So this one, I'm going to be using crit and swiftness, like before. For the engravings, we're going to be using Reflux, Grudge, Keen Blunt Weapon. Adrenaline seems to do slightly more damage, so I'll go with that, and Hitmaster. so we'll go ahead and summon the boss. Go ahead and set the timer to 2 minutes. Let's quickly take a look at the skills. Again, just pretty standard, everything level 4. Again, I won't be using Squall, and I'm going to cast my Awakening a little bit before. So you can see that this is pretty much the standard instant cast setup. Some changes that I've made, however, are in the gems. You can see here I've taken away one cooldown gem from Punishing Strike and put it on Frost Call, just because we have a casting skill that has quite a bit of a long cooldown. I figured that putting one on Frost Call would help me maintain Adrenaline slightly better, and that's the reason why I did it. Cards, again, nothing too different. So with that, let's go ahead and give this one a go. Let me go ahead and stack my Salvation, because I did that for the other build. Okay, we're all stacked up. I'm not going to stack Adrenaline. And let's see how this goes. Alright, so with this one we got about 3.5 mil DPS, 76% crit rate, which 64 plus 15. I actually undercritted a little bit, according to what I had over here. So you can see that this one, again, is on par with the other builds as well too, and everything does a very similar amount of damage. So with this build, of course, it's contingent on you landing Doomsday. In progging Hard Vicus last week, it was actually very annoying to land Doomsday on her. So I was actually considering swapping over to Seraphic Hail. But I really like the skill, so I want to make it work, so I'm going to keep trying with it, and we'll see where that gets us. The final build that I'm going to test out is going to be our casting build. So let me go ahead and leave and go ahead and test that out. Let's swap to my casting preset, and let's re-enter the training grounds. Alright, so for this one, I am running a Final Strike variant of it, so I'm going to be using Crit Swiftness like this. For the engravings, I'm going to go ahead and use Reflux, Grudge. We're not using Keen Blunt Weapon, but we will be using All Out Attack. Let's go ahead and throw in Hitmaster. And because this is Final Strike, I'm going to try this with Precise Dagger. because I want to crit as much as possible. Let's go ahead and summon the boss. Let's set up the timer. And for the skills, again, nothing too crazy. Everything is level 4. Again, won't be using Squall. I'm just going to cast my Awakening now to proc the set effect. You can see that my crit rate is about 84% here because of Precise Stagger. There are the engravings that we had before. For the gems, the big change, of course, is instead of reverse gravity gems, I now have level 7 explosion gems, as you can see here. And again, cards, nothing too crazy. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stack up my salvation. Okay, my salvation is stacked up, so let's give this a go. Alright, so the casting build gave me a DPS of about 3 million, and the crit rate is 81%, which does actually undercrit a little bit. So I will say that I am the least experienced with this build. I have seen casting Reflux players put up much higher numbers. You can see that the burst at the beginning is very, very big. So for you casting Reflux players out there, if there is something wrong with the way I have the casting build set up, please let me know if I'm canceling incorrectly. Typically, I'll have Explosion and Punishing Strike at the same time, then Doomsday and Rhyme Arrow at the same time, so I try to do that type of canceling. I have all the appropriate cooldown gems and damage gems. But from what I've seen, the casting build does tend to do less DPS overall, but as we saw from the beginning, its burst is the highest, right? Its introductory burst, if we kind of look at that one more time. As you can see, is very, very high, right? We can do a lot of damage in a very short amount of time. And I'm sure that you could do some optimizations with Boundless MP and Magic Addiction to ensure that your large casting spells land when you're in Magic Addiction and not Boundless MP. So again, take this with at face value with a grain of salt. This is just from my setup and my testing. But as you can see, all the different Reflux builds aren't too far from each other, so I want to take this time to reiterate one more time that you should just play what you enjoy. All of these styles are viable. There is a style for each player, each person, so please choose the thing that you enjoy the most, because as I've said before, having fun is the most important thing you can do in this game. So with that, thank you for watching, and take care.